The one big beautiful bill.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the one big beautiful bill?
So people have asked.
You know what? Let's do the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh, goodness. So I have not read the entire 900,000 page document. There are certain aspects of it that I've looked at.
Senator, you didn't read the bill, Senator? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
I did not read the entire bill. There are a few breakdowns of it that I've listened to, particularly tax implications for farmers. The tax implications are significant. I believe in tax cuts. I would like to eliminate the income tax, and not just because I owe taxes, but also because we get taxed for everything. We get taxed for the money we earn. We get taxed for the purchases for living. We pay all kinds of fees for everything in terms of, and maybe we need to pay those fees like for license plates and registration and all this kind of stuff. And then the costs of living are just so high. So I appreciate the no tax on tips, the no tax on Social Security. I don't know why we would be taxing Social Security from seniors in the first place. I would like to eliminate the income tax and maybe replace it with a consumption tax, or replace it with a flat tax, and then that's it.
Consumption tax. Can you?
So it would be based on the things that you purchase. For me, I would prefer that there are some exclusions outright. These categories of things are not taxed. I don't think you should pay taxes on your rent. I mean, honestly, I think if you have to buy a car, I'm keen on you not having to pay taxes on an automobile. So, like food, shelter, clothing, transportation, are just medical supplies, those things to me are just like essentials for living, amongst other things. So there would be specific categories of necessities that are excluded. And then there would be exemptions that under normal circumstances, you would pay taxes on these things that are usually taxed. But at certain times of life, you wouldn't. So I think for a while, maybe students who've just graduated from high school and or college, who are just entering their careers, have a period with which they don't pay taxes on some typical items. I mean, there'd be things that we include in that. Maybe a car outside when you graduate from college because you need transportation to get to your career. Maybe the clothing you need to buy to get yourself started up. Maybe when you're starting a business, you don't pay taxes on the items you need for a home office, that kind of stuff. So a consumption tax with specific exclusions that people never pay taxes on because they're so essential to life. And then exemptions where under certain circumstances and times of life, you don't pay taxes on typically taxed items. I think that the more money, it's kind of like I think taxation in America and the way governments tax and spend, it's kind of like a woman with a big purse. The bigger that purse is, the more you're going to put in it, right? And so the more money we give them from taxation, the more they're going to find a way to spend it. Because also, when's the last time anybody really talked about having a balanced budget? I think that needs to be normalized in our U.S. Congress and in D.C. as well. So there's that. I do appreciate the work requirements for receiving Medicaid. I think Medicaid, should be something that anyone should have access to. Any citizen should have access to when they are in need. You can't work for a while for whatever reason, and you need that support while you're getting back on your feet. But it's not supposed to be something that becomes like how your way of life, and it certainly shouldn't be a generational thing, right? Where you got 3 generations of people who are receiving supplemental income or whatever, not related to disabilities. So I definitely support that. I do think, though, in order to make that real, we need to also have infrastructure that points people potentially towards jobs as well as skills development. In order to, if you ain't worked and you ain't seen nobody go to work and you just been living your life the way you want to live it, it might be a little difficult for you to enter into a work environment and manage your emotions and manage the feedback that you get in your stress responses to what the rest of us know just as life. I would say I certainly support, and I would have loved to see the cutting off the healthcare to illegal aliens. There's no way that many Americans have been driven into bankruptcy because they couldn't pay their medical bills. And so I know Biden made it so that your unpaid medical bills are no longer on your credit score, which I think is proper. But still, we're paying for illegal alien healthcare. Now, the case can be made that under certain circumstances, when we allow people into the country legally and they are indigent, first of all, that ain't supposed to happen. We're not supposed to have public charges being allowed into the United States. So if you're allowed into the United States and you can't pay your own bills, then we've already violated our own immigration laws by allowing a broke person in here in the first place. But there is something to be said that when we allow a refugee in here or an asylum seeker in here, that it behooves us from a public health perspective to check out their immunizations to see if they have any active communicable diseases, like tuberculosis is very prevalent in some areas. Children that are going to be going to our schools, because the Supreme Court in its infinite stupidity said that we're obligated to educate illegal alien children. We want to make sure they don't have measles, that they've had a measles vaccine, for example, and some of the other stuff that would otherwise endanger all of our children by exposing our population to it. But maintaining their healthcare on an ongoing basis, that's a big nope. Let's see, there are some elements in the big, beautiful bill about farming that I can appreciate. Even though there's been some pushback among my future constituents about
before you move to the next segment,
yes.
I do have to ask you one thing, because you was going in depth about taxes.
Yeah.
Now, I thought about this in depth for a long time, and I believe it's feasible. What about one tax?
One tax being one federal tax, and you don't tell me what you mean.
One flat tax, period, to the American citizens. However, governments, whether be federal, state, take that taxes and how they divvy it up: consumption tax, income tax, sales tax, property tax, whatever tax you want. You go ahead and have fun. But the American people tax one time, because think about it. Your employer gets taxed. When you get paid, you get taxed. When you purchase something, you get taxed. You know how it goes on and on and on and on and on. You get taxed for everything. So you don't get, double or triple or quadruple tax. You're just taxed, period. So what about just one tax? I've never heard anyone say, you know what, one tax, that's it.
Yeah, so I think that's a flat tax that I was mentioning, either a consumption or a flat tax. And it's possible those will need to be staged, right? Where they are different for sure, a flat tax versus a consumption tax. We'd have to that doesn't mean it can't be done or shouldn't be done, but we'd have to rework how we think about government funding and whatnot in order to implement a flat tax. And then the states and government and as well as local would have to figure out what's the best structure for that. Because, your local government in terms of your schools and all that kind of stuff, especially with Trump wanting to shift to the states' rights emphasis on education and just about every other, most of the infrastructure, social infrastructure anyway, in the federal government. So that's something that would have to be looked at. I support giving far less of our hard-earned bucks to, especially on an individual basis, to the federal government through taxation. I do know that many very wealthy people skip out on paying taxes because they don't actually take an income. They take out loans and then they write off the interest on those loans. So what would happen with a flat tax is everybody would owe, 7 cents, 10 cents if it's a 10% tax on every dollar, no matter, there's no getting away from it. That would be a lot of restructuring. And I haven't worked all that out. And apparently our government hasn't either, about what that would look like from the various levels of government and what we would need to sustain the basics as well as our defense, right? Through revenue.